Hello again, 8th grade scientists. I am here with your Evolution 4 notes. So we will be on page 7 of your evolution packet. And you have already done the introduction to evolution notes. You've done evidence for evolution. And then number 3 was biological evolution. So today we're going to focus on geological evolution and using your STEM geo. That should give you a hint as to what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so you need to know this name, Alfred Wegener, and he observed that the continents fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. We have already talked about Pangea in the geology unit, the previous unit, and so he proposed, as you see in this picture here, that all of the continents fit together like a puzzle and that they were connected in a supercontinent called Pangea. All right, this picture kind of shows how the Adirondack Mountains may have looked several hundred years ago. So over time, over hundreds of millions of years, they've been worn down and due to what we already talked about in geology, weathering and erosion. So like the notes say here, weathering breaks the rocks down, erosion moves them, and then deposition puts the rocks down. So I like this picture a lot because you can see, over time there has been, like it says here, a gradual change over millions of years. We wouldn't recognize a change in our lifetime. So we're talking about Earth changing. So with continental drift, we're talking about the continents moving together to form Pangea, and then also to their present day, moving away from each other to their present day location. So in this diagram, we see that during the Paleozoic era, scientists believe that our continents came together to form a supercontinent called Pangea, and then they slowly have been moving apart since the Mesozoic era. So you see Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous, and now we have our present day formations. And we're still slowly moving apart, but obviously we won't see this in our lifetime again. This is happening over millions of years. So what is the evidence that this has happened? So we talked about fossils and index fossils in the geology unit, so that would be evidence. The idea that they fit together like a puzzle is part evidence. There are glacial deposits that are similar in Africa, South America, India, and Australia, so that gives us evidence that they were at one time together. Here's where the fossils, come in. There were tropical plant fossils found in Antarctica. So that's just one example of fossils that have been found that obviously not, Antarctica wouldn't have been where it is today if it has tropical plant fossils, maybe somewhere around the equator. All right, paleomagnetic data. And then seafloor spreading. So we talked about seafloor spreading in the geology unit again. This is evidence that scientists can see, can measure to know that the seafloor is in fact spreading. And if the seafloor is spreading, then continents probably have moved along those plate boundaries as well. And that brings us to the theory of plate tectonics. So the Earth's lithosphere is broken into large sections called tectonic plates, and they have moved or changed over time. And we talked about all of our plate boundaries, and they are reviewed here again. So we have convergent plate boundaries moving together. So those would create mountains. Subduction can occur. Remember, subduction would create a trench on the ocean floor. Divergent plates pull apart, they move apart, and so volcanic islands like the Hawaiian Islands in this picture could be formed. We could have new crust or magma forming. Seafloor spreading would happen at divergent plate boundaries. And then transform plate boundaries, they slide along past one another. In the past unit, geology unit, we talked about the San Andreas Fault and earthquakes happening a lot at that fault line, and those would be due to transform plate boundaries. All right, and then the last little part, can geological evolution affect living organisms? So if we have geographic isolation, our animals in isolation might look a little different. So what do you notice about all of these animals? What island would they be located on? You're right, Australia. Australia has the wombat and the kangaroo and the numbat, the koala. All right, and so because Australia is isolated, it is an island, they have different variations of organisms. And you talked a little bit about that during your biological evolution notes previously, how, you know, organisms have changed over time as well. All right, down at the bottom of your page 7, there are some questions about plate boundaries, so you can go ahead and answer those. These notes should help you answer those correctly.